Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody, depending on exactly where you are, what time zone you're in, what you're doing. Welcome to Areopa. My name is David Singleton. I'll be your moderator today. And in a moment, you'll find that this is our 56th session, so it's getting to be quite a library of data that is being built up by Areopa. Today, Luc, our founder, will be creating a session about test automation is a team effort. Today, what Luc will be focusing on is to show you that test automation is not necessarily a technical project as it seems to be conceived of and understood by a lot of people. He's going to show you that it's a team effort and it requires all aspects of the entire project to be involved with for the project to be successful. Few rules: you don't have a mic, you're switched off. If you have a question, put it in the Q&A. There's a question area. You can ask a question. If the question is something that I can answer, it's irrelevant to the thing, like for instance a sound issue, I'll handle it directly. If it's a question that I feel needs to be answered in respect to what's happening immediately, I will interrupt Luc and we'll ask the question immediately. If on the other hand the question is something to the side that can be asked later, I will leave it till our QA session. At 10 minutes before the end of the session, we will have a Q&A session, or a bit earlier if there are a lot of questions. So those questions will go on hold till the end. Now, once the session is presented, if you find it interesting, you want to see more, go to our YouTube page. If you look up Areopa, it's pretty easy to find on YouTube. And please subscribe to the channel. Please like. We do need that because the way the algorithms work on YouTube, if we don't get subscribers, we just can't do a lot of things. So it'd be great if you could do that. Even if you're not going to watch the whole thing, please at least subscribe. So if you want to know what's happening, new events, please subscribe to the webinar. If you get our newsletter, you'll get information and you'll get the list of all of the regular webinars as they're coming up. So on there, if you go to our website, Areopa Academy, you will find a list of upcoming sessions. Now, we do have a summer break ahead, and we'll be picking up to season 4 in September. So it is going to be quite a long break where everyone can have a great summer, some time off. And there is a possibility that the sessions will move from Tuesday to Wednesday. Keep in mind that we're always looking for new presenters. One of the things about this being an academy is it's not just to teach the people watching, it's also a great entry if you want to get into presenting and you haven't had a chance to make it to one of the more commercial events. This is basically a simple sponsored session. You can get up without being embarrassed. If you want to get out there, this is the place to do your first session, public session. So thank you for following us. And especially thanks to 4Nav. 4Nav are the ones that make this free for you. It all happen. And that's how we managed to do it for free for you. So thank you to 4Nav. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Luc.
So my screen is in view, David?
It's perfect. If anything happens, I will interrupt and tell you. I'm going to mute now and just sit in the background and
okay.
Let's go.
So thank you very much for the introduction, David. And thanks for playing this role, doing the role that I'm normally doing, because I wanted to tell my story. I hope my sound is clear and that the first slide of my presentation with the big title, Test Automation is a Team Effort, is in view. Welcome, everybody. It's a message I wanted to get out again before my summer season starts. It's a presentation I did at Days of Knowledge in June in Denmark. Typically at that session there was quite a lot of questions and discussion, and I didn't get to all the slides. That was one trigger to do it right now and go through all the slides, next to the fact that I'm very interested, and you will see I will share a QR code which you can scan with your handheld and be part of a poll. I have, let's say, about 12 questions to you all, which I'm really interested in getting your response to that. So be prepared for that. You will see on one of the next slides a QR code popping up. So test automation is a team effort. Yes, test automation is one of my favorites, and typically you'll end up around test automation to see that I'm blogging on it, that I've written a book, that I'm doing a lot around this. However, there are also other people working on this, and that is, let's say, part of the story here, that it's not something you can do on your own. Nevertheless, before we start, kind of disclaimer, we will talk about test automation, meaning automated tests to validate business logic. So just to make clear, this is not about performance load testing. It's about seeing that your code is doing what it's meant to do. Not that it's fast or whatever, that's not the focus, but the focus is, does it bring input A to output B? That's what it's about. Yeah. And after this session, as another kind of alternative disclaimer, you might leave the room, in this case a virtual room, in a different state. But please, you can't shoot through internet, but don't shoot the messenger. That was a bit, let's say, the joke at Days of Knowledge. I'm going to tell you something you might maybe not agree with. Don't hate me on it. I want to start with a quick survey. And as said, this survey will be online. I'm using Slido, and if you have a smartphone or whatever tablet that you can scan the QR code, please do, so that we get input from each other. As mentioned in the description, it will be interactive. Yeah, you can shout what you want. We will not hear you, but please click on the buttons that pop up. So this is helping you. You could, if you don't have a scanner to scan the QR code, you could use also just a browser and go to slido.com and fill in this, let's say, session number. Yeah, this QR code will reappear in later slides too. So if you miss it right now, don't be afraid. You'll get to see it again, like on this slide, for example. So the survey is going to start right now. Who? All the questions, almost all the questions start with who. Who is familiar with test automation in BC? So now it should trigger Slido to come up with a question. And you can, if you did succeed to get there, can fill in your answer. And I understood you need to press the send button. Yeah. We're here with about 24 people. So one answer, I don't think this is 100% everybody, but might be. Yeah, of course, that could be
Just
that it
me.
doesn't change. Yeah. So if you're able to connect, and if not, here it's also saying, yeah, 13 people. It's new to me too. I installed it this morning, started to use it. I was searching for a tool, 15 people. Not much more than that. Then I'm going to the next one. Let's say most of you are familiar with test automation. Okay, I'll be a little bit more patient. Okay, you cannot shout, so I cannot hear, but you might type something in the question bar window if you cannot succeed. But let's say roughly most of you do some. That's what it is. Okay, let's move to the next question. So who of you uses test automation in BC? So, and if you did send the previous answer, this page should appear on your side too, allowing you to give your response to it. Yeah. Okay, we're almost at the 17th. Yeah, so that's, you could say this is the same audience that answered this first one. Okay, a little bit less, which is, well, a bit in line with what my experience is. So next question, who of you designs tests, is designing tests? And whatever you understand with designing, I don't mind, but who of you is designing tests? So. Okay, yeah. Let's say a little bit less. Okay, there's one extra in the audience. Okay, let's go to the fourth question. And as I did note on the starting slide, we have 5 questions right now. So we're almost there. Who is coding test? Hmm, 50-50. Wow. Okay, there's another extra one to the audience. Oh. Is it possible to give multiple answers? No, I don't know. Okay, nice. That's a nice division, 50%. Okay, then who? Well, who? That's me. You might know me from various perspectives. I saw some people on the list. ex-colleagues, people that attended some of my courses, whatever. So this is not unfamiliar. What is most important background in this context is that I've been a tester, and at that time mainly a manual tester at Microsoft, testing local functionality for a number of Western European countries. So this is my family with my lovely wife and great children. I feel very honored to be their father. So, of course, to add the second edition of my book, if you didn't acquire it, of course, that's up to you. But just as a short note, it's twice as thick as the first one. So there's a lot more discussed in this second edition. If you want to contact me, use either of these, my Twitter handle, my email address, but also on my website. Feel free to come around with any questions you have. If it's simple, I answer very quickly. If it's a little bit more complicated, I will still answer, but maybe not that fast. And if it becomes too big, I'll tell you to hire me. But feel free to ask. I mean, if I have an answer, you get it. If I have a simple answer, surely. Last question in this part, what is your role? I'm very interested to see what I have here in the room. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Works really nice, by the way, this. The other three don't have a rule. That's also possible. I'm pleased. Okay, wow, yeah. I'm pleased that it's not only developers. Typically, when I did the presentation at Days of Knowledge, and I made a little bit rumor before this session, by the way, but with Days of Knowledge, I actually hadn't this question on the slide, but then I thought, what do I have here in this room? And I asked, who are developers? And almost everybody put up their hand. While the title also was the same here, test automation is a team effort. And typically either they were sent, oh, it's you developers that need to do it, whatever. But I'm happy there are more than, because this story is broader than the development role or technical roles. Thank you for your answers. But you're not yet ready. What do you think? So I want to know, and it's simple 7 statements where there's a yes or no answer to it. Yeah. And I will elaborate on the statements once we got through them. So what do you think? The first statement is test automation is a technical exercise. You can agree or not agree. There's nothing in between. Let's make it simple as that. I'm forcing you to make a choice. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, 50-50. Oh, no. If the 19th person also want to make a vote, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so almost 2 against 1. Okay, let's go to the next one. Most think that is a technical exercise. That's the yes answer, right? Second statement, test automation is a necessary evil. Okay, well, 19 and 20 might also still want to answer. Yes, 19 and 20. Okay, 60-40. Almost as similar, but then the other way around. Most think it's not an evil. Thank you very much. Test automation is a deliverable. Yeah, so it's something we need to deliver. Okay, 21. I think then we have it. The big majority says it's a deliverable. Okay, let's go to statement 4. Test automation is a cost item, meaning that it's money spent on. That's what it is. Nice. Not 60-40, but not far off. Well, I'm going to the next statement. Number 5. So the majority says it's a cost item. Statement 5. Test automation makes manual testing superfluous. So not needed. Okay. Yeah. That's a clear majority saying no, it's not superfluous. Okay, statement 6. We're almost there. We had 7 statements. Test automation is the silver bullet. If you don't know the terms, the silver bullet, it's, let's say, a solution to everything, more or less. Okay, well, same percentage as the other one. And a last statement, test automation is a unique chance. Yeah, if we go to 21, 2 to go, we're almost there. Okay, 85, 15%. An extra vote will not change a lot on this, but okay, thank you very much. And I'll get back to the statements and I'll tell you what I think about it, which is in surely some cases the other way around than the majority thinks. And that's what I want to tell you, because that's typically why I'm telling this story, because I think some things are a little bit different. And yes, that's probably due to me, who I am, but it's also due to my experience. My experiences are that test automation is often seen, and that was also the majority, as a technical exercise. It is the developer, as I wrote it here, or the developers who should be doing this. Yeah, I think this is a major misconception. If it would be like this, that the team manager or the owner of the company says to the developers, this is your game, then I'll hope with all the things I'm going to talk about today, you're going to give a pushback on this. Because if that's the case, it can easily become a disaster, because it's not a technical exercise. And that's my conception, or my experience also. It's not just the way I think about it. Of course, I think about it that way, but it's based upon experience also. Yeah. Implementing requirements is not a technical exercise, and tests are part of the requirements. Yeah, so it is a team effort, and that's the title of the presentation. Yeah? With both functional and technical components. How do I know as a developer, if I were the developer and I am in different situations, how do I know how to test it? That's a requirement. There's a functional description on how I can validate how the system behaves. So if it is seen as a technical exercise, we're missing something, because yes, I can make automated tests, create automated tests, but how do I know that I have a good coverage? How do I know that these are the essential ways of validating how this piece of software is going to work? I think, and that's relating to my experience also, that you will not be able to do a good job on test automation. You need to have functional input on that. That doesn't say that you as a developer, if you're the developer, doesn't know how to do that. As a senior developer, you probably have a lot of functional knowledge, but that's not making it a technical exercise. Yeah. So these two, the functional and technical components, as I call it here, are intricably linked. You cannot take that apart, or you can do that and you can think you do that, but I think you will miss a part on that. Yeah. So technical exercise is a misconception. It is a team effort. And that's what I will elaborate on. Let's first go through the statement. So is test automation a technical exercise? No. Yeah, that I think I made the point clear. Of course, put in your questions or your statements if you disagree, because that's also what it's about. I mean, that I have experience on this is not an endless experience. It's always a constrained, a restricted experience. And I base my findings and my, let's say, my opinion or how I move after that on that. So if you have other experience, please share. Yeah. Is test automation a necessary evil? Depends on how you look at change. Test automation is coming in, that's a change. So in my opinion, it's not a necessary evil. Is test automation a unique chance? Yes, I think it is. It's leveraging your practice in many ways. Why is this leveraging your practice? Well, one of the next statements is it a deliverable? In a way it is, but it's more than that. Test automation is a unique chance to leverage your practice, to leverage the way you do your implementation. If you're going to, and this is not saying that it's test-driven development or you should do it test-driven development way, but tests should be defined in the requirements. They should be there before you start coding. It allows you as the developer, most of the people here are developers. As developer, it gives you input on how you already can test what you're doing so that you deliver code with a better quality. It gives input on, well, hey, these are the tests, but let's review. Oh, I'll get back to that later. Oh, I see a hole here. Why didn't we get those tests here? It is a way of discussing how you're going to implement the things, or how you would be able to verify what you implemented. So it's more than a deliverable, which comes on later, but it's a unique chance to change things. Yes. Then, yeah, is automation the silver bullet? No, nothing is the silver bullet. So in that case, that's a simple one. It will help you do a lot, but as we all know, and those older of age and younger also, but the more you have been there, have been doing things, you find out that over time we get into those waves of new things. Yeah, they show that things previously could be improved, but are they the final silver bullet? No, there will be a next wave showing you that, hey, we haven't looked at it this way, let's do it that way. So no, surely not a silver bullet. And is test automation a deliverable? I think I already made it clear. It is a deliverable, yes, the ja in German, but it's also a no, a nein in German, because it's more than just a deliverable. I hope I made it a little bit clear, and well, you'll see later also why I would say it's not a deliverable. It's not only a deliverable. If you see it, test automation as a technical exercise and a deliverable, you will miss a lot, and probably you will also miss the fun of it. But surely, if that's the goal, you will end up having to maintain a deliverable, while if it's part of the way how you develop, it's a logical consequence as a deliverable. Is test automation a cost item? And add another one. Does test automation make manual testing superfluous? Certainly not. I think test automation is not a cost item. Yes, you need to invest. You need to learn. You need to spend time on it. Yes, you will write more code, but your production code will have a better quality. Your iterations of rework will be lesser than before. And I always use myself as an example. And it's not that I want to boast, but if I, having been a tester and being a tester and a developer, deliver code in the situations I have been with colleagues, I deliver better code than they do. Why? Because I test it better, because I know how to test it. And I probably am stepping on some toes, but in general, developers are not the best testers. Yeah. And often, well, probably that has changed, but in the past, too often in our world, in the NAV and later BC world, it was I implement the code, throw it over the fence to the functional consultant or the testers to test it. And did I do my testing? Probably you did. And the more experience you have, you probably do a better job. So I probably step on toes, which is not fair. But if you're going to go into test automation, your test effort will become better. So the code you deliver will also be better. And yes, the first time delivering the code to your colleagues to do something will take somewhat longer. But then after that, you will the cycle of rework, the number of cycles will be shorter. So getting to the final delivery will be faster. Okay. Test automation is a team effort. That's what I say, that's what I pose, and not just posing from what I think should be right, but also from experience. Yeah. So as mentioned, both a technical and functional component, just like implementing requirements. And actually, some might know I've done a presentation on testing and requirements. Testing is part of the requirements defining tests. Yeah. Test automation, however, is not rocket science, but it's an extra tool. Yeah. So it leverages your practice of coding and manual testing. If you have a lot of tests automated, and you could better call it automated checking instead of automated testing. Testing is more than that, than just getting a specific scenario checked. Yeah. The manual testers will start at a higher level already. Yeah? The more we automate in the testing, the better they can do their real testing job. They don't need to run all those boring tests again. It's a means of raising the quality of your product. Yeah? Your product will have lesser bugs when it goes live. And I don't elaborate on that specifically here, but I did in other presentations. If you're in this new world of SaaS and every month an update, you can't afford to deliver, as we did in the past, that quality to app source. If it doesn't work right, it's deinstalled and you're out of business with some of the people out there. Yeah? It's, I think, a gift to the customer, to your customer, to my customer, yeah, and also to yourself. It is something we have been more or less withholding from the customers, you could say. The testability framework has been there in the product already for 13 years. So we had a lot of time to step into that. But never too late. Get on with it. It's a skill that needs patience and discipline. That's true. We need to learn. We need to fail to improve and see how it works for us. I'm doing a lot of training and consultancy on this, and I don't have a silver bullet how it works for your company or another. I have a lot of tips. I have a lot of things I share, but for the one company, you need to do it a little bit different than for the other. I'm currently running a project, and I'll starting a new project with different companies, and I know it will be somewhat different in both of them. So it's a skill that we need to learn with some patience and discipline. Your first test will take a long time. It's surprisingly how much time you will spend on understanding how to build this, but it's not rocket science. Yeah. And yes, a lot of people will tell me, hey, look, but this test automation, we need to create so many tests and we need to define so many details. Yeah, but what have you done before that? The manual testers, didn't they test all those tests? Maybe not, but if it's standard that, let's say, the test automation shows like a big mountain, which is 10 times or 100 times bigger than the test effort we did so far, then the test effort so far wasn't a good one. Yeah, so there is no difference. It's about testing. And the only difference is, how do we automate it? It's not a difference of focus on what we test, it's a difference on how we get the tests, well, executed. Yeah, it's a huge mountain to climb, yes, but you need to start. Don't hold, just start with it. Yeah, every step you take brings you further. If you're going to climb the Mount Everest, you need to start. Of course, there are a lot of preparations before you go to climb Mount Everest, so better go and go somewhere else in Europe, I don't know, in the Black Forest in Germany, or go into the Dutch mountains. We don't have mountains, but we have some hills. Make it simple. Yeah, but every time you need to take a step. All right, so step by step, getting closer to the top. And the advantage of test automation, if you automate a test compared to manual testing, is that any test you automate, you never ever have to do it manually again, which means that you're freeing up time for the manual testing. Yeah. So if you're adding features and you only have manual testing, the load for the manual testing becomes bigger, bigger, and bigger. Of course, the automated test load will not become smaller, but there's nobody a lot bothered about that. It's just a push on the button and it's run. Yeah. So a problem statement here. How do you make test automation a success? Yeah. How do you make test automation a success? By starting at the requirements. Yeah, I have a link later of a presentation I did on this one, also as an Areopa webinar a year and a half ago. Feel free to go and watch that one. So, well, if you do have a feature already in place, you're not going to start at the requirements. You're going to start by making sure you plan the test, create a test plan, as I call it. That's what you will do in a similar way for new requirements too, or you could do it that way. But create a plan. Don't sit down as a developer expecting from yourself and probably others too that you can just type out a number of tests. No, you need to plan it. Why? Because from just scratch on, from the back of your mind, from the heart, or what you want to call it, you will in general not have a good plan. You will not take maybe the right scenarios, the basic ones that we surely need to have. You might have forgotten that there are a couple of variations we need to include. So we need to plan this. Plan your test automation. Yeah. What to do if there's only an app and not requirements code, or there are only conceptual requirements. Create a test plan. Yeah, conceptual requirements are about like use cases. As a user, I want to do this and this and this, with no, in general, clear examples. So if I do this, how should the system behave? If I do that, what would be the alternative behavior or the other behavior? Actually, what we implement is behaviors, and that's what we are checking. That's what we're validating with tests. So that's what we need to define. So create a test plan. Yeah. And what is a test plan to me? I'll show a number of examples here, and some might be familiar to some of you because I use that as examples in my online course or in different other setup. Yeah. So in a test plan, we need to know what subfeatures do we have to the thing that we built, or as it's called in ATDD, the features it has. So that's a bit an ambiguous term than feature. Maybe, probably for all of us, the feature is the thing that we implemented. What are the areas that make up that feature? So what tests do we need if we have those areas? For area A, what tests do we need to verify that area A is doing what it should be doing? Yeah. Or area B, what kind of tests do we need to verify what area B should be doing? Yeah. What tests do we need? And also, what kind of tests? Are we going to use the UI to do our testing? Preferably not, for the simple reason that UI tests are slow. If you use test pages in AL code, they're 5 to 10 times slower than doing direct record creation. For the developers, having a record variable, filling some of the fields and doing insert. That's much faster than opening with a test page object, a card page or whatever, create a record. Yeah.
You're on the last slide in your projection. Did you mean to go there?
No, I'm not on the last slide. So
okay, then your sound was breaking up a little bit. It might just be me then.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just me.
I'm on the slide where there is a cartoon of Boris Johnson shouting out loud, "Don't worry, I've got this plan B."
Sorry, it's my network going down, not yours.
Yeah,
it's refreshed. Sorry.
No. It's good that you ask. Sorry. It would be a big shame if I was talking for minutes and quarters of hours, and you were still on another slide. No, that could happen. But
yeah, it just got down. It was my network. Go, continue.
Yeah, no, thank you. So for the test, we need to point out, hey, this should be a UI test and the others not, or preferably no UI test, but you might want to do some UI testing. And yes, positive versus positive negative. Positive tests are what they also call the sunny path or happy path or flow scenarios. This is what the feature should be doing, clearly. This is what I want to achieve and it works right. Negative tests are those corner sites where you forget to fill in a value and then an error should pop up telling you, hey, I can't continue because this is empty or whatever. Yeah, so the positive negative is that it gives throws an error, but you are forcing the error. So you are creating tests that are going let's say, cover the hooligan parts. If you forget something or deliberately or whatever. Yeah. If your test set turns out to have only positive tests, think twice. Shouldn't there be also positive negative tests? So this is about planning, triggering you as a team, as an individual, but also as a team, to think twice about, hey, what are the tests that are helping me to validate that the behavior that we wanted is indeed implemented. Yeah. And as said, with requirements, I think requirements should end in those tests. It should be a translation of conceptual description into factual description of how the system should behave. Yeah. So you do this, you should be doing this, you should strive to do this before you even start with app coding, because having tests in place already or defined, it helps the developer to do a better job, or to do the job more efficiently, or do the job with more pleasure. I don't know. And you review this to optimize the test set and to get an agreement on it. So I'll get back to that in a later slide. It needs to be reviewed. Yeah. And it's owned by the team. Who is going to create the test list or this plan, the test plan in this case? Well, probably a functional role. But is he or she the owner? No, it's the team who owns it. The team is responsible for the test set. The team is responsible for the requirement. The team is responsible for the AL code. It's not the developer. It's the developer's role. And because of her or his skills, it's their work to do. But it's the team who owns the code. Yeah. And you might even use a test plan to formalize the sign-off. Yeah. What is a test plan? This is a small example, or one example, and for some this might look familiar. What I do is what I call a test plan breakdown first at a level of some sub areas, and then I finally get to the level where I can define this is the test. Oh, sorry, this is the test I want to do. And as you can see, some are non-UI, some are UI. I also, not always, but tend to add a priority. Okay, let's focus on the priority 1 first. There's too much to be done for this first project, but then the next project already can then hook into priority 2 or 3. Yeah. So this is a version. This is another version. This is a bit anonymized based upon a project I did in Germany with a company that was lifting their CAL solution into AL and needed to provide, at that time it was mandatory to provide a test app towards app source, let's say, validation. These days it's not longer mandatory, but I think, sorry for the word, but I think it's totally stupid if you don't build your test and want to be on app source, because how are you going to verify every month that your app is still working? So to exaggerate and with disrespect, I call it stupid, but just to put the pressure on it, I can't imagine to have my app on app source without automated tests, because should I be the one or whom else in my team to test it every month manually? And the final one, and this relates to, that's what I'm advocating with my book also, use ATDD, plan the tests at a high level, and then define or design the details, what I called the test design, the details of data setup, given the action, the when, and then the verification. This is not a presentation on this, so I'm not going into details, but let's say this is eventually where I came up with. And yes, tools like Azure DevOps, Test Plan, etc., or in TestRail or whatever kind of tools, I'm still finding a way to bring those two closer, and that's part of the projects I'm currently running. But this surely has proven for me and the teams I worked with is very beneficial. Nevertheless, to set up a plan and to design, who does that? Before I do, and go into that, if you don't have a plan and the design coming from it, you don't have any tests. There's no way of testing the thing. Yeah, of course, Manual testers do have experience, and they talk from their experience, they test from their experience, but it's reproducible. If they fall away, can anybody else do it? And that's also part of this story. So test plan, testing, test automation is a team effort. In what way? Well, it is the thing like all the implementation work. Yeah. Typically, who's creating a test plan? The scenarios only. That's where we need functional knowledge. Yeah. It's describing actually how the system should behave. That's a functional requirement. In general, it's not a technical requirement. It could become some technical part, but in general, there is a customer wish that leads to your implementation. Yeah. So typically, a functional role or experienced developers could be fulfilling this part. Yeah. So it shouldn't be we all pointing to the functional consultant. Hey, it's you that does the test plan. If she or he is overloaded, let's have a look. Who's next? Who could be doing this thing? And realize it's just getting to set up a test plan, but we're going to review it. And then designing it, defining the details of each scenario. What data setup do we need? What action, what verification? I think almost anybody could do this in the team. Of course, functional knowledge is an advantage, but not a must. We're going to review it. Let's get a junior doing it to learn about this feature. Of course, you need to plan time for that, but I don't see any argument not doing this in the end. Of course, if we're in a hurry, we don't have that much time, the budget is low, okay, then that's requirements that forces us to have an experienced developer doing a part or whatever. Yeah, but learning as an organization is also paying off later. So part of doing this, letting this be done by different roles, is that the whole team gets a better understanding of the functionality. But essential to this all is review. Review by all team members. Yeah, a review if a team is consisted out of a key user, if it's a customer project, a functional consultant, a developer, and maybe that's a team or there's maybe indeed a tester involved. Everybody is involved in the reviewing. This is related to the fact what I practice, the 80-20 rule, Pareto. In 20% of the final time, you could say I'm able to get on, create, realize that this 80 things, 80% of the coverage of the feature, I do in 20% of the time. So 80% of the test plan I can set up. The other 20% I could, but it takes a hell lot of more time. So let's get that reviewed. The 80-20 division with the other people is probably a bit different. So they see a couple of holes I didn't see within seconds. That saves a lot of time. Yeah. So get everybody include for different reasons I mentioned so far. Advantages also more or less mentioned. The whole team gets a better understanding of functional level 2. You also will find out that you get better discussion between, for example, if you have product owners, developers, and product owners. That's exactly what I experienced. Looking at my colleagues, they were starting also with test automation, and they already had a better discussion on the requirements with the PO than they ever had before, because now they needed to implement the test to really get the nuts and bolts in place. And functional roles don't have to be a bottleneck. Typically in the team I'm working currently, the PO is a bottleneck. There's too much on his shoulders. And well, if you can then distribute the work, that's great. So in getting a better understanding of the team, you will get lesser interpretation and lesser rework. So the more you get close to each other of this is what it is, the better understanding and lesser interpretation you will get, and the lesser bugs, forcing you to again fix it, again test it. Oh, another bug. Oh, fix it, test it. Yeah. And with this one, a more efficient time usage. So if you do it the old-fashioned waterfall way, requirements, and then requirements are ready, app coding, and then app coding is ready, and then tester starts. Oh, how are we going to test it? No, you can do in this manner a lot of parallel things at the same time. In the requirements, get test in place already. Get the developer, if they're not on a project yet, involved on that. Okay, so now your team is set to create coded tests. Great. Let's assume that here. So if you want to watch the webinar I did for Areopa under the title My Requirements Specification, also facing the same direction, please do so. Let's say this underneath some part of this presentation. And this one is based on, and I'll mention it there too, but I want to mention it here too. This book, if you haven't touched upon it yet, it's a big tip to have a look at it. He made Gojko Atsik, he did a research on 50 projects by 30 different implementation companies and found out that one of the pivotal thing is that you need to define in your specification examples. He called it examples, but related to what I'm telling here, test scenarios. Okay. I'm nicely on time, as you said. 10 minutes left for Q&A, David. I hadn't expected that I would really hit it. But...
about to tell you.
Sorry?
Perfectly timed.
Yeah.
Perfectly timed. One of us is having a problem with sound, but I'm not sure if it's you or me. Just towards the end, I think my internet was a bit funny and sound was breaking down. But I heard most of what you were saying. But I just hope it was my end and not your end, but the recording should be good. So we have 3 questions. I'll go through them. They're two of them are pretty straightforward. One's a little bit more complicated. The first one is simply from Ted Johnson. He was saying, please don't move it to Wednesday because it's the only day that's difficult for him to get to. Yeah. Is there a reason for the shift to Wednesday? What's that all about?
I'm changing. I always had a part-time job to be next to my own company where I'm teaching and advising, be in the mud with projects that I run. And my new employer at this moment wants me to be on the job on Tuesday and Thursday. So that's why I'm moving it. But there were also some people say, well, but we're here on Monday. So if that would be Monday, then I would be available on Tuesday. So I'll take it into account that, but cannot promise anything at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I mean, you never, it's always someone's going to have a schedule clash. Unfortunately, it's just the way
this
business works. Yeah. So the next one is from Andrew Aldridge. He's saying, when you say functional, as in a functional consultant, and he would say that they are centered on the technical side of the fence. Could you clarify? In other words, end users a direct functional input. Is that part of what you're saying, or basically define what you mean as a functional consultant? No, and then he's got some other notes that I'll add after you've said that.
Yeah, I think it the way Andrew puts it, I think it is covering what I'm meaning. But for me, a functional consultant, yeah, you could say it's on the technical side, as the implementation is a technical exercise, but I don't think the implementation is a technical exercise. The technical part of the implementation is a part, but in the end, that's also what I always tell students in my courses. You always need to get back to the functional requirement, to the customer wish. What the heck are we implementing? Of course, we sometimes have a fully technical exercise because we have some underneath lying technique that we need to get in place. However, still then we always need to keep eye on the fact that we build something, a platform, because we want users to be able to use it. So it's functionality. That's a broad description. If I would say that it's envisaged, for example, from the statement that test automation is looked at as a technical exercise, it's often looked at, okay, test automation, test coding, that's what developers do. But the functional consultant should be included in that. Yeah, so that's what I mean with there's a functional component on that, because the functional consultant can tell the developers in general, I mean, experienced developers probably might play that role too, on how this feature is working and how are we going to validate that. That's what I mean with the functional side on that. I hope that clarifies it enough.
Yeah, I think so. You're saying that the functional, as in a functional consultant, may be a part of the functional role, but what you're saying by functional is that there is a large aspect of the testing automation process that is functional and not technical.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. And even, by the way, even if you would do test-driven development, which is a big part is a technical exercise, so developers are doing that. But even there, I saw lately, I watched a presentation by Ian Cooper. I was hinted on it by Andrew Zwirzowski, the guy of the AZ development tool, VS Code add-in or extension. That guy had a great show or presentation, which I first thought, is this an issue? But with test-driven development, it had become more and more that we're testing implementation instead of functionality. And test-driven development is also about testing functionality. If you have an API is also, it's a technical functionality, but it's clear the API, this in, this out. And how it's implemented, I don't care. That's not what we test. We test the surface where we touch upon the API. And you could look at a page which a user is using also as an API. There are a number of, how would you call it? Well, the fields, but you could say a kind of block where you can put in things. And if you have set the different parts, this is what you get out of it as a result. So I try to look at pages also as APIs. It's a clear definition of what you can put in it. And if you push an OK button or an action on top, you get a result. Yeah, so everything, in my opinion, should be looked at. Also, if it is more technical, as a functionality. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I hope that answered Andrew's question. Andrew, well, ask more if you disagree, but I think you've answered his question, because I think he was trying to clarify, is by functional, do you mean a functional consultant? Because a functional consultant he sees as the liaison between an end user and a development team. Yeah. And in your case, that's not, that's part of it, but it's the functional aspect of understanding the business rather than the technical.
True.
And it's critical that we have that in a test automation.
Yeah, true. Nice way of saying it. Thank you.
All right, and I'll yeah, okay. So that did Andrew's question. So I think it is two different, functional and functional consultant. Functional is an aspect. Functional consultant is a person, and they are different, although connected. Okay, so the bigger question is from first last. Oh, first last. Someone's put first and last name. I think. Yeah. Okay. First last. Hard code. First question. Two questions. Hard coded values are allowed in certain automated tests. True or false? I.e., should I hard code my payment method with literal PayPal for my test, or should rather filter on another field in the payment method table, prepayment %, and rather try to find the record based on that?
This becomes a kind of yes and no answer, although the questioner put in a way that it's surely the last part, if I'm right, it's not a yes-no part, but are hard-coded values allowed? Yes. Part of test automation is get the test running as fast as possible and use an obvious implementation. If the obvious implementation right now is to provide a hard-coded value, I will. Writing the next test might show me that hard-coded value is not going to work, because the next test is a variant of the first test and a relevant one, and it's triggering similar kind of code. So I have duplicate of code, and now see I have two implementations which look alike, and the one has a hard-coded value A and the other has B. Oh, let's generalize this. So with test automation, if you use test automation as a way of doing your work, not just as a deliverable, you will find out, yes, I will use hard-coded value. As long as that's relevant, I'll do. And later on, it will show me that it's not relevant or not usable anymore. So that's one part. And then finding records in the database. I preferably don't have databases with data in it, but I do need data in the database. So if I do have payment terms and I need to set up a customer with a certain payment terms code on it, I need to have a record in the database. So my test code will create that record. So I'm not going to use or expect an existing one. I'm going to create my one. Though I always do this, I'm also practical. I make use of a lot of Microsoft libraries, and they make use of data in Cronus. So I need Cronus for that, and it uses that data. Is that bad? Well, it's not ideal. It might turn later on to turn on me, and that I need to adjust all my tests because it's no longer there anymore. But as long as Microsoft makes it available, I'm using it because it saves me a lot of time. So it's a yeah answer.
Okay, well, there's a follow-up question to it. Thanks. That is, should a specific test focus on checking one single requirement from the related story, or try to make it so dynamic that it could possibly catch other errors? For example, my test is trying to check name length while it suddenly fails on postcode validation. Is this encouraged and a good thing, or not really?
It's a bad thing. I mean, a test has one focus. So, a test always has one focus.
One focus. So you, yeah, basically.
I mean, if I tell you,
that's clear.
Can you verify that this and this and this and this and this and this, your head start to run over. Yeah. Oh, what did you want? And how do I do it? No, if there's an error happening, there's only one. In general, only one path leading to that error. If you have a posting routine going on, and one of the specific things is that a posting date field should be populated, and it's one of the first checks in check line, for example. Is that the first test and it fails? Okay, great. There's a way to get to that. Then the next possible failure is that it checks another field. The path getting there is almost the same, but the difference is that the next test has already the posting date populated, so it hits up on the next test for the field that was not populated. And that's a different scenario. Yes, could you write methods with parameters that you have, say, okay, this is path 1, this is path 2, you could. But the test, and technically in EAL, a test method is one test. It has a success or a failure. And you cannot have in one test a success and 10 different failures or whatever. No, it's failing on one thing, and then if the failing is not meant, it could be failing on different things. That's true. But it's successful because of one flow through the code. Yeah.
Okay, so one test, one pass fail.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's answered his question, so that's great. And the only last thing is Gert Hector. Hi, Gert. How are you? He said Wednesday is a bad day. Yeah. So yeah.
The message
every day
is clear.
going to be bad for someone, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I know, and I'll see what happens.
Yeah, Fridays are bad for me. That's why I haven't seen you. I haven't been to the Beernars for so long, just because I can't make Fridays anymore. It's always going to be a problem, unfortunately.
True. No, but
I really would like to make the Beernars. Anyway.
And I'm very pleased. Gert and many of the others are here every time we have a session, and I'm very pleased. I feel very honored in a way also that people return every time again, and others never attend because they watch the recording. That's up to them. So there are always two ways. But yes, to Gert and Ted, I love you to provide the situation. I love to provide the situation that you can be on the session, but let's see how it works. It was a mentioning that be aware that it could change, but I'll update you on what will happen.
Great. Okay, we're out of time now.
So yes,
well done. It was time.
Yes. So yeah, thank everybody here. Thank you.
So thanks everybody for joining. Remember to follow us up on the YouTube. Again, thanks to ForNav for sponsoring this, and so that it's free for you guys. And the rest of the details are there. I'll catch you all at the next one. And thanks, Gert. You have a great holiday too.
Thank you all.